In July of 1518, a woman named Frau Troffea stepped into a street in Strasbourg and began to dance. No music played. No one had invited her. She simply moved, and she did not stop. By the end of that first week, 34 people had joined her. By the end of the month, over 400 men and women were dancing through the streets of the city, some for days without rest, some until they collapsed, and some, according to city records, danced until their hearts simply gave out. This wasn't a festival, it wasn't a performance. It was one of the strangest medical mysteries in European history, and the city's response to it may be even stranger than the event itself. So what actually happened in Strasbourg? And why did an entire town respond to it by doing the one thing that seems most likely to make it worse? At the time, physicians in Strasbourg believed the dancing was caused by overheated blood, a physical imbalance that needed to be released through movement. So the city's authorities made an official decision. They built a wooden stage in the middle of the marketplace. They hired musicians to play, and they encouraged the afflicted to keep dancing, believing it would burn through their sickness and cure them. It didn't work. It made things dramatically worse. More people joined, the dancing spread, and the death toll climbed, until the city finally reversed course, banned the music entirely, and forcibly removed the dancers to a shrine in the mountains, where the epidemic, just as mysteriously as it began, finally faded away. For centuries, this event was treated as a historical oddity, buried in old city records. Then, in 2008, a historian named John Waller decided to take it seriously. He spent years combing through physicians' notes, city council records, and cathedral sermons from the exact summer it happened. What he found changed how the event was understood entirely. Strasbourg in 1518 wasn't calm. The region had just suffered a string of brutal famines. Grain prices had spiked. Disease was widespread. And on top of all of it, the population lived under a genuine, deeply held belief that God could punish sinners by cursing them to dance uncontrollably, a curse tied to a folk saint named St. Vitus. Waller's theory is that Strasbourg wasn't hit by a physical illness at all. It was hit by something psychological, a state now called mass psychogenic illness, where extreme stress in a population already primed by fear and superstition expresses itself through the body instead of the mind. This wasn't some vague guess. A physician alive at the time named Paracelsus, one of the most influential doctors of the era, personally investigated the outbreak and documented these same conclusions. He noted that many of the dancers weren't celebrating. Their faces showed exhaustion, terror, and desperation. Several openly begged bystanders for help, unable to stop their own bodies. Paracelsus recorded that this wasn't joy. It was a kind of possession the dancers themselves didn't want. Centuries later, a modern sociologist named Robert Bartholomew, who has spent his career studying outbreaks of mass psychogenic illness around the world, pointed to Strasbourg as one of the clearest historical examples of the phenomenon. Bartholomew's research shows the same basic pattern recurring across cultures and centuries. Extreme collective stress, a shared cultural belief that makes a specific symptom feel plausible, and one visible trigger case, is sometimes enough to produce a genuine, uncontrollable physical epidemic with no biological cause at all. Which means the city's decision to build a stage and hire musicians wasn't just misguided medicine. It was the exact opposite of what Waller's research suggests should have happened. Surrounding traumatized, terrified people with public spectacle, music, and reinforcement of the very behavior gripping them almost certainly fed the epidemic instead of curing it. This raises an uncomfortable question about what your own mind is capable of, given the right conditions. Under extreme enough stress, fear, and belief, A healthy human body can be driven to do something it never consciously chose, something the person doing it is often desperate to stop. Modern life rarely produces dancing plagues, but it still produces stress that outpaces the mind's ability to process it consciously, and the body still finds its own ways to carry what the mind cannot. So the next time stress builds somewhere in your chest, your shoulders, your stomach, without an obvious cause, remember Strasbourg. The dancers in 1518 weren't performing. They weren't faking. Their bodies had simply found a language for something their minds could no longer hold quietly. Yours might be doing the exact same thing right now. You just might not recognize it as dancing.